No, I don't fall in love in 3 days, but like, wow, that was a great 3 days. I just had the memory just really hit me.
That was the 3 days we didn't hear from you. We thought you died.
Almost did. Rest in peace.
Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Life Uncut. I'm Laura.
I'm Brittany, and I am on the biggest come down. People are calling it PTSD, post Taylor Swift down, which I don't think you can relate those to.
I don't know if you can. I think we'll get cancelled for that.
I went to Taylor Swift last night.
I know,
Laura, you went Friday night. It was
calm down.
The best night of my life.
Calm down.
It was the best
Do you
night.
know, okay, there's two types of people in the world right now.
The Brittany and the Laura.
No, there's people who have been to Taylor Swift, so they understand this.
Yeah.
And then there's people who haven't and they're sick of hearing about it. And they're the only two types of people that exist at the moment. People who are totally over it.
Well, sorry, for the next 30 seconds, you guys are going to hear me say it was the best night of my life.
And people who will never, ever.
Look like you're fingering something. Who talks like this?
I was giving you the one and the two. Didn't you like the two?
You were literally looking at me. She's looking at me like she's got two fingers here, like she's fingering something. She's like...
Okay, so for context, Britt went last night, and so she's rolled in today still with the sequins and shit in her hair.
I've got the beads in my hair still because I was really feeling like I didn't want to let it go yet, this era of my life.
What is the era?
The Brittany Taylor Swift era.
That's a collab. That's a collab that no one saw coming. And I went on Friday night in Sydney, obviously, and now it's Monday. I'm over the hump. I'm over the hump of the high. It was incredible. It was amazing. It was everything that I expected it to be from everybody else's hype that I had kind of, seen, witnessed, and experienced. But it was phenomenal.
It was better than I expected, I can say. So I went to Taylor Swift, I think 2018, when she was here for Reputation tour. So I had seen her before. I know she's amazing. And I knew this show was going to be incredible, but it exceeded expectations. It was 10 times bigger and better than her Reputation tour. Like, her Reputation tour was amazing, but this was I just don't know of another artist in the world that would put on a show for 4 hours nonstop with the effects that she has, the screens, the choreography, the dance. She did not stop singing. She was never puffed. Like, everything was incredible. I cannot fault it.
I was puffed and I was literally just standing on the spot, jumping up and down.
Same. When I left.
I need a water break.
When I left with my best friend Shannon, I had flats on. I was like, I'm exhausted. My back hurts, my feet hurt. And then I was like, imagine Taylor doing that for 3 years.
I know.
4 hours a night, 4 nights in a row. Then she travels, then she does it again for 3 years. And I was just from jumping. My arms are sore, like I've done a workout from fist pumping. I fist pumped for 3 hours. And this morning I was like, why are my triceps so sore?
Well, this is apparently why she runs on a treadmill for 2 hours and sings the whole time, like for her cardio. And I was like, imagine having that much time on your hands.
Well, I don't think she has the time on her hands. I think she's just incredible.
It was okay. It was a very well-oiled machine in terms of concert. And Britt and I were just comparing notes as well, because obviously went to separate ones. And Britt said, okay, if you went to the concert, you guys are going to know the moment we're talking about. But Britt was like, there was this one moment where she was sitting at her piano and everyone was screaming. And I was like, yeah, she did the same thing at the concert that I went to. So I feel like even though
everyone screams the whole time anyway.
No, but there was this really like amazing, profound moment where she was sitting at the moss-covered piano and everyone was absolutely losing it for an extended period of time. And she's basking in that moment of screaming. And to me, I would think the thing that I was most impressed by was how well oiled the machine was. Like, every single thing she did on stage, she knew she was going to do that thing on stage.
Yeah, she's a performer.
It's absolutely, it's scripted, it's ready to go, and she can roll it out for the next night and get the same type of response, which is incredible.
Okay, I just feel like I need to have a sit down with Taylor. I'm on the fence with Travis Kelce. I was really pro Travis Kelce. Like, I was like, okay, great. You've got this new, different kind of love that you've never experienced. You're not hiding anymore.
But now you don't like the guy? What did he do? He gave you the ick.
Yeah, because you know what he did? What a dickhead. Like, you've got Taylor Swift, the most beautiful, young, intelligent, rich, amazing, humble girlfriend, and he flew out of Australia, allegedly. He allegedly flew out of Australia yesterday. He flew in for like one show, whatever, flew back straight away. And straight away he's been photographed, gone straight to a strip club, surrounded by women. Like photos have gone everywhere in the last 24 hours.
Was he at a strip club or just at a club? I think
I said allegedly. It said strip club.
No, I think you're conflating two articles. No. You didn't hear the stories here first because I think we're going to get ourselves in trouble. I'm pretty sure he just went to a nightclub and he was photographed with women. And then there was another article saying that Taylor Swift has banned him from strip clubs. I think they're two separate
Why do
ones.
you ban someone from strip clubs? Because they go to strip clubs.
I just stop believing the shit that you read, Britt. I don't believe it for a second.
I'm allowed to talk about Taylor's love life. And I just think I want her to be in love so bad. But a week ago I was like, they're going to get married. And now I'm like, I think he's going to be too bad for her reputation and her image, which she looks after so well. And I think he's going to be detrimental to that. So I reckon she's going to, oh my God, imagine the album
I know.
when they break up.
I'm ready for it. Oh my God, all the fun. That was not intentional.
Mm.
Make it stop. Make it stop. Okay, the only thing I do want to say before we round out the Taylor Swift commentary, because I know, like I said, so many of you are sick of it. What I thought was very, very cool and something that I have not seen at any other concert. We all know how sick I was for Blink-182. The fact that
I saw that article that you wet yourself go viral.
Yeah, guys, if you didn't see that, I made the news last week and that was me talking about pissing in my boots. The thing I thought was so cool about this is that not only does Taylor Swift have the nostalgia piece because she's been around now for so long making music, but she also is relating to such a young audience. So there were so many mums there with their teenage or little tween daughters. Like there was one mum sitting in front of us. She had her 7-year-old, her 10-year-old and her 12-year-old with her and the four of them were there together and all of them were Swifties. And that I think is...
And the mum.
Yeah, totally. Because the mum was like just a little bit older than me and she had these tween kids. And so all of them loved it. And I think that that's what's so cool about it is that she's created music that's transcended two separate generations.
She doesn't have a demographic. She does not have a demographic. Her demographic is literally everyone. Men, women, kids, adults, grandparents. It's actually incredible.
But it's also how the way in which she's made things that are technically uncool, cool. And I say this so one of the things that was quite awesome about the concert, right? You go to like a Beyonce concert or you go to Pink or you go to literally any other very successful female pop star. Often a lot of the show, a lot of the performance will be based around what's sexy, right? Like you'll have dancers on stage, very scantily clad, shaking their asses. I mean, that's why twerking became like a whole thing. And then here at this Taylor Swift concert that's commanded 95,000 people in a room or 81,000, whatever the number was in Sydney, you've got all these dancers on stage doing ballroom dancing. Like they were dressed in full ballroom doing this like beautiful waltz. It's just the contrast between what you would expect a modern pop star to be and the way in which she presented on stage. And it's this like things that are deemed as kind of like uncool are cool again. And I think it's the inclusivity of it that makes it like something that's quite remarkable.
She has made uncool cool.
Uncool cool.
And
be cringe, lean into the glitter, be like a big loser with your friends and that's cool again.
The friendship bracelets, like since when is it cool for people to like make their little bangles and then go and swap them with people? But everyone did it.
Yeah.
I had one of our lifers actually give me a friendship bracelet they made for me that said, I found my penguin. And it's really, really cute.
So cute.
I had like hundreds of bracelets on my arm.
I made you one and then I
them,
wore it and gave it to my daughter and it says Britty Teddy.
Yeah, Laura goes, made your bracelet, didn't give it to me. The whole idea is you give your friends your bracelet.
I made a Britty Titty bracelet and then Molly saw it and she really wanted it. And so now she's wearing Britty Titty around.
Well, I was like swapping bracelets with people in the audience and I was like, you can't have that one. Because it was like found my penguin from a lifer. So I was like, I think I broke the friendship rules with the bracelets, but I didn't let anyone take them.
But even that, I mean, like, it's leaning into female friendships. It's leaning into prioritizing the things that we often deprioritize, like going out, having a girls' night, spending time with your closest friends and having something that is very, I mean, on one hand, very cool, but on another hand, very, very deeply dorky to lean into. It's just fun. And like I was there with a couple of girlfriends of mine, two of them are mums, or my sister's a mum, my other best friend's a mum, and one of them who doesn't have kids and is heaps younger than me. She's like 10 years younger than me, but loves it just as much as we all do. And it just, I don't know, there's something about how much it brought everyone together in that space. That was awesome.
I was talking to producer Keeshia about this and it's so interesting because there are so many dads and men at Taylor Swift because they're either fans themselves or they're there with their daughters, their children. They're like, let's go bond, let's go family bond. And it was the exact same thing that we saw at the Super Bowl. Like there are so many dads and men now that are bonding with their daughters or females in their life that couldn't have given two hoots about the Super Bowl and the football 6 months ago, and now they're so involved. Like the viewership of American football and Super Bowl and the amount of money that Taylor Swift has brought in single-handedly to that industry is insane. So you're seeing this unity and this bonding in both aspects, and it's so beautiful to see.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, all the staunch footballers being angry about the fact that it's changed football. But also, I do wonder what the impact will be if they break up.
Oh, it'll be disaster. It will
over.
be a disaster. Yeah, and he'll become the most hated man in America.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
I don't think he realizes what will happen to him if they go through a breakup.
Yeah, the vilification will be he'll have to go into hiding. All right, well, producer Keeshia, you have been talking about this surprise that you have for us. You refuse to tell us what it is. You refuse to give us a hint. Can you please let us know finally on the podcast live? What is it?
Yeah, both of you have tried to get out of me what this is. I texted you last week because, look, I think hindsight can be a very interesting thing. And we got a message to our Instagram last week from a wonderful listener named Molly. And I can't read you exactly what she said because I asked her to delete the messages because I didn't want you guys reading it ahead of time because I wanted to surprise you on the podcast.
I'm like racking my brain.
What the, I know. And also this has been breadcrumbed by Keesh for the last.
Keeshia, if this is not amazing.
I was like, just give me an idea about what we're talking about. You're like, I can't possibly.
I cannot.
It's a surprise.
Did we win Lotto?
So Molly was listening to an episode that we recorded back in November of 2022. It's the week after you got married, Laura.
Oh, what
and
did I
it was
do?
a part of Suck and Sweet. And she just said, this is so funny now listening to this episode, knowing how things have transpired. So this is what went down in November 2022, Suck and Sweet.
I'm still
No.
crushing.
I'm
crushing hard.
No.
Look, I'm feeling my breasts as
Okay.
I say I'm crushing.
I am going to tell you that this is a disaster waiting to happen. Brittany has
you
got,
always
she's
veto me.
Yep, and I'm always correct. This one.
Maybe I need some support every now and again, Laura.
There has been some that I've been supported. This new one, this is a bad idea, Brittany Hockley, and you know it. Look at your face.
Nah.
I cannot believe that we have a dating and relationship podcast and after 3 years you are still entertaining this relationship.
Firstly, you know I have an attraction to people that aren't here.
Yeah.
Because I'm commitment phobe.
I know.
I'm not in love with him. I'm in lust with him. It was 3 days. We've been speaking for a long time now.
Of course. On social media, I can't, guys. Okay.
No, we
my
FaceTime.
suck for the week is that Brittany never learns. She never learns from her mistakes, and I'm so tired. 3 years of being the responsible one. It's too much.
You're tired, but let's be real. I'm giving you content.
That's all I need.
And I'm learning slowly.
Okay,
It's not a sprint.
it's a marathon.
It's a marathon.
To be fair, it worked out quite well for you.
Laura,
This time-
this is the worst idea you've ever had.
I mean, it's not. It's still not been the best sometimes, but it's very good now. It's in a very good place.
That was actually very funny to listen to.
Fucking hell. Also, for anyone going back through the trenches, we don't know what we said. I don't know who I was 2 years ago.
I don't remember that.
I also can't be held to account for anything I said 2 years ago. I'm a different person now.
No, I still back you. I still think you were right. I think it's just
What do you mean she thinks she was right? I'm in love.
I'm so glad it's worked out the way that it has. I'm so glad that you're happy. And I love Ben. I love that you guys are together. But if you guys don't work out and you come to me and you're like,
Don't put that pressure on me.
So I met a guy, he's in Ireland, and I'm just going to see where things go. I will feel the same.
I met a guy that actually is taking a solo scientific position in Antarctica, and I think it's going to go well. There's no Wi-Fi there. But there are a lot of penguins.
And I've only seen him for 1 day. I think his name is Steve. I don't know.
But I'm feeling good about it.
Sometimes you need the best friend in your life who tells
shit
you.
on you.
No, I never
your
shit.
chest.
Oh, that was really went somewhere weird.
Oh, sorry, we're talking about something else.
No, sometimes you need the best friend in your life who is the voice of reason, even if you don't listen to them.
If I listened to you, Laura, where do you think I would be?
Dating someone in Sydney.
On the street somewhere with some hooligan.
No, look, I mean, I am very happy to admit that I was wrong in this instance.
Well, yeah, because now I've transitioned from lust to love.
You already loved him then. It was 3 days and you were so you never took your face out of your phone trying to have a conversation with Britt. She'd be like, yeah, I'm listening. And I was like, you're texting Ben, aren't you? You're texting this guy.
Yeah.
Give me your phone. We're going to smack him as well.
No, I don't fall in love in 3 days, but like, wow, that was a great 3 days. I just had a... the memory just really hit me.
That was the 3 days we didn't hear from you. We thought you died.
Almost did. Rest in peace.
Oh, shit. Okay, guys, if you're listening back to the back catalogue of Life Uncut and you find some other gems, send them on through. Really, just please do. I need the walk down memory lane. I want to be held accountable for all the things I've said wrong.
What's the time frame? You know, in the court of law, how there's like a time period that you can't be held accountable for
Something
anymore?
Statutory
limit
of declaration. I don't know, but I always bring it up. Britt always tells me it's wrong. And then we've had lawyers.
You make laws up all the time.
It's 10 years. 10 years, guys. After 10 years, you can't be held accountable.
Double
what
jeopardy.
do you think our, whatever
It's
the
not
version
double
is,
jeopardy.
statutory limit of whatever time?
Statutory limitations.
Something like that.
What
What
time?
should ours be for Life Uncut? How long can we be held accountable for thoughts, opinions, or advice that we give on Ask Uncut?
I don't think we can put that down because someone will hold us accountable for what we've just said.
Is it like a return policy? 28 days? You've got to have proof of a receipt.
Do you know the funniest thing I remember about that time is that for some reason that day, and this never happens, you, Laura, producer Keeshia, and Maddie J were at my house because we had some random recording. And this was the 3 days, the first day I met Ben. And I was like, hey, you guys were about to go. And I was already linking up this guy. This guy was coming over. And instead of ushering you out the door quickly, I was like, hey guys, just procrastinate for a minute because this guy I'm banging's coming over and I want you to see him. Because I just thought I was going to show him off like my little prized possession for the day, and I was never seeing the guy again. So I made you all wait around. The poor guy, Ben, walked in thinking it was just me, and I was like, oh God.
It was everyone.
I was like, guys, can you go? What? I asked you to stay to look at him, and then I was like, guys, this is awkward. Please leave. I'm trying. Like, it's not cool.
Actually,
I just shat on you guys.
Your exact words were, you need to stay. He's so fucking hot. You've got to see this. And so
you won't
I just
believe
remembered
me.
why we were there. It was because we were recording the episode about your wedding.
Yeah.
That's why Matt was there.
And
so
Matt
we
was there as
recorded it.
well.
And it's not like Ben's subtle. He's like 6'4" or something. Like this
6'5",
big,
yeah.
tall, handsome man just walks through the door, and the three of us are sitting there like, hello.
And he was mortified. I was like, I'm so sorry. They're hanging around like a bad smell.
No, I don't remember you saying like, oh, I couldn't get rid of them. I think you were like, oh, the record ran over. Sorry about that.
I don't know. I made up something because I just
Whatever.
wanted, because I thought I was never seeing him again. So I thought it would be really cool for my worlds to collide. And also in my head, I was like, content, like this hot guy that I banged, at least you guys have seen him. And then obviously here we are.
Obviously, he became the love of your life, and
Yeah.
we didn't think that things would go that way, but based off of past experiences, which is why at the time I was on Laura's side going, you're being a good friend by telling her the truth. You're giving her the tough love, and she needs it.
Were you on Laura's side, Keeshia?
Yeah.
Most people were, except for the odd lifer who would message me and say, you're being so mean to Brittany. She's in love. You should just be happy. Like, I cannot tell you the amount of you guys, the listeners, who messaged me privately to tell me that I needed to be nicer to Britt about you being in a new
Fair.
relationship.
I felt
and
the
I was
same.
like, everyone, let's just take a step back. I just did COVID with Britt in another country running around after a love. And then I watched her be heartbroken, decimated on the floor, and now...
Wow, that's a shit on the floor, Laura.
Well, you were. You were literally... No, that's defecating. That's not decimated. And now, out of nowhere, you've told me you've fallen in love with a guy who you banged for 2 nights on Raya.
If you banged him for 2 nights, you would have loved him too.
And then you've gone overseas and changed. I was like, guys, anyone who thinks I shouldn't be saying, you know, Britt, I love you, but I'm worried is actually insane also. And I am so happy it has worked out, and I will absolutely be in the wrong. But to anyone who messaged me, I love you, but go and fuck yourself. You should be a better friend to your friends. Also,
you.
Ben loved Ben too.
Ben listens to this. Sorry,
I know
Ben.
he does. I know, but I want the best for you, and I was trying to protect you.
He actually said, you know when you start dating somebody and you become like obsessed with everything about them? You look at their LinkedIn,
That wears
you look
off.
at their but I mean like you want to know everything about someone. So obviously he read our book, Laura, We Love Love. He just started reading the whole book, and then he listened to every episode of the podcast. So he was listening to us talking about those times, and he was like, why does Laura not like me? And I was like, oh, here we go. And he was convinced that you didn't like him.
Nah, I was just the friend. I was playing hard to get. I was like, I hold higher standards for Brittany than what she holds for herself. That's how I felt at the time.
Oh, wow.
But
My
Ben-
standard was pretty high.
Ben proved himself. No, I've seen you be in relationships where people are mean to you. And that was my thing. I was like, you are chasing around onto another country, like after a guy that you barely know. I was like, let's just slow things down and have some perspective.
like my mom.
I know. I just
slow
don't
it
want to see
down.
you get hurt again. That's all it was.
None of this jackhammering, slow it
Yeah,
down.
slow down.
Massage
Touch
the
me,
relationship.
speak to me.
Make love.
Why are we rushing? Good all day.
Why are we rushing?
my
We've
God.
got 48 hours. Thank you for that walk down memory lane.
Can I say off the back of that, something I wanted to bring up quickly? It's something we spoke about on Ask Uncut last week. And it was, you mentioned LinkedIn and my brain went ping, 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 ping. We had this question that happened and it was around, so this girl, she'd met a guy. He'd said he didn't have social media. She tried to find him on social media, couldn't find him. And then she asked the question as to whether or not she should message him on LinkedIn because she found his LinkedIn profile, but he didn't have social media. Now, Britt, you and I, speaking of the time of whatever the word is, statutory, that's not it.
What,
it's
our,
not it.
Our own
Whatever.
statutory limitation.
The limitation. I think
double
it's,
jeopardy.
I think it's longer than 4 days, but we said on that episode that it was fine. You should go, you should message, shoot your shot one more time or at least one time and then see what happens.
You're retracting your statement?
No, I'm not retracting our statement, but we put up the social video of that on Life Uncut Podcast on our Instagram. And the overarching comments, there were so many, but there was like, I would say more than 99% of people had said, don't message him. And the reasoning for that was that they were saying, if you met him in real life, if he made a point of saying he doesn't have social media, he also then had the opportunity to give you his number or give you another way of contacting him. But he just left it with a blockage of saying, I don't have those things, and then went on his merry way. So majority of people interpreted that situation as though, well, look, he's already given you the indication he's not interested in you. Why would you message him on LinkedIn?
I still don't agree with that.
Great. Disagree with everyone on Instagram.
No, sorry. Okay, what I will say is there are numerous times people meet each other in real life and don't swap numbers or nothing happens because they just don't expect that that's the situation. They don't think the other person will be interested. This happens more times
Or they're
than
nervous.
not. Or they're nervous. More times than not, people's safety net is unfortunately online. Even lifers, right? How many times I've had messages from lifers say that I saw you literally, hey, I just saw you 10 minutes ago, but I didn't want to say hi, so I messaged you. And in my head, I was like, but say hi. Like, you must have just been around the corner from where I was right now because you've jumped straight on your phone to say hi online because you feel more comfortable. And I understand that. And I think that relates to a lot of people in today's dating scene. The worst thing that can happen if you don't shoot this shot right, it's not like you've messaged him on Instagram and he's left you on unread and you've blocked him. And it's not like he gave you his number and he's blocked you. And then you're like, I'm going to try LinkedIn. I've got his address. I'm turning up. Like, this is just your one reach out. I think it's fine. If you don't shoot your shot, if you don't ask, and you're not writing to him and proposing marriage, if he says no, he will politely decline in whatever capacity. No skin off your back. You walk away and it's fine. But maybe there's a chance he will reply and it might be something and maybe that situation just wasn't right.
Can I just say, you guys have not changed at all since 2022. You're still the dreamer and you're still the realist, okay?
I am.
You're the dreamer who's like, shoot your shot, take your chance. And Laura's like, here are the factors you need to be realistic about. This could have happened. Like, things have not changed as much as what we think they are.
No, and I'm not a pessimist. I'm just a realist. But also, I'm with you, Britt. I just thought it was interesting.
Yes.
I thought it was really interesting the way in which people interpreted that on social media because overarchingly, the number of comments on there were all saying don't do it. And I think it's interesting when we give our advice and feedback on Ask Uncut episodes and then the majority says no, which in this case was the instance.
What I want to leave you with is, when have we ever let you down?
Brittany's like, what I want to leave you with is I'm always right. Don't listen to Laura.
What I want to leave you with.
Go chase the footballer who lives in another country.
Sure.
Good. Sometimes it works out.
Sure. Sometimes. We'll see.
Sometimes.
I haven't got a ring yet, but
Something we wanted to talk about on this episode is the very real life Handmaid's Tale, like it's unbelievable what is going down in Alabama at the moment. So many of you would be familiar with the conversations that happened around Roe v. Wade being overturned and how fertility, abortion rights, IVF, all of these discussions were then handed over to the states within America. We spoke about Roe v. Wade when that happened back in 2022, but now there's been more changes and more advances in Alabama. So what has happened is the Alabama Supreme Court has ruled that frozen embryos created and stored for in vitro fertilization are children under a state law which is allowing parents to sue for wrongful death of their minor children. Now, the reason why this ruling has come to light is because it's all off the back of a civil suit that started in 2020. So there was an incident where 3 separate couples' embryos were destroyed. And it's actually quite devastating. What happened and what seems to have kind of gone down is that a patient went in and was able to access the freezers.
Which God knows how you even do that, but that's a whole nother story.
It's insanity, right? But they've accessed the freezers. They've been able to handle the frozen embryos of other people's families, and they have dropped them. So what it says in the court documents is that the person got freezer burns when they handled these embryos. They dropped the petri dishes. They smashed on the floor.
Because it's at like minus 80 degrees.
Yeah. And they destroyed 3 families' embryos. So this was taken as a civil suit originally for what's called wrongful death of a minor. And originally it was overturned in court because a frozen embryo can't be considered a minor. And that was the original ruling. Now, this was then taken further than that. It was taken to the Supreme Court where that original ruling was overturned. And the Supreme Court in Alabama has since defined that a frozen embryo is considered to be a child, that a child is from the moment of fertilization, whether that is in the womb or externally.
Frozen, whatever.
Which brings so many more questions. And the reason why this is it's such a landmark case, but also the reason why it is now fraught with so many problems is that it raises questions around IVF in general, around the moral liability of IVF clinics and what they do with those embryos, around the long-term storage of embryos and frozen, because it means you can't destroy an embryo. You can't do anything to that would then potentially hold you liable for this wrongful death. And it also means that some of these clinics could come under what would be considered criminal charges for the way in which they're handling embryos. It's completely changed the benchmark for how IVF can be handled within the state of Alabama. And then I guess the big thing is Alabama's only one of 11 states who have these similar rulings post Roe v. Wade. And so it begs the question, is this going to be ruled out across the country?
I had a little look into Alabama wrongful death, and this is what it says. The party responsible for the death could be charged with a criminal offence, and if convicted, they could face fines, jail time, and other penalties. Although a criminal conviction could provide the family with some sense of closure, it does not compensate them for their loss. So currently these families are trying to sue, but technically what this means is if you are convicted of wrongful death, you could face a prison sentence. This could be off the back of literally freezing 5 embryos and then for whatever reason deciding not to use all or some or one. Maybe it could be 1 embryo. Maybe you have an embryo that didn't develop properly and had some sort of genetic abnormalities and you decide you don't want to go further for whatever reason, or maybe you're not allowed to go further for whatever reason. That could also be seen as wrongful death.
Well, you would still have to keep it frozen. Forever almost, or like indefinitely, because what do? You can't discard it if it's considered to be a child.
I do not know what the repercussions and the future is going to look like in that capacity, but what I do know is the effect that this is going to have on women in Alabama, and hopefully it doesn't go any further than Alabama.
Yeah.
The repercussions are so astronomical, both the financial stress and the emotional stress that is going to put on a woman, even trying to make the decision if she should go forth with IVF, because imagine the stress you already have doing IVF, but then on top of that you're like, holy shit, what if something goes wrong and I end up in prison?
See, I mean, that for me, I understand when you say think about all the people who are considering this. But at least the people who are considering IVF in Alabama have the choice to potentially consider it somewhere else now that these legislations have come in. The people who I think are in the most gravest of situations are women who have already been through the embryo freezing process. So they already have 10 or 15 or whatever it is embryos that are frozen, and now they could be criminally liable for those embryos. The big question that they have is, what are they going to do with that? Do you then wait until you've hit menopause and then go through the very costly task of having eggs inserted into you, then knowing that they are not going to take? Do you keep them frozen indefinitely, which means that you're paying storage fees for forever? I mean, the other big question though here is if you legally have to keep those eggs frozen, does the state not have some responsibility of financial reimbursement? And we were having this discussion just as we were unpacking the many complexities of this. And we were like, well, if you are outlaying a cost for what is considered to be a child, even though that child is frozen and currently in a freezer in an IVF clinic, does that not mean that that child is a dependent? That embryo is a dependent on you. So therefore, wouldn't there be some sort of tax benefits that you could get back in order to be able to pay for the freezing? There's just so many complications around this. And the fact that the law has changed in such a swift nature, it means that so many women and families are going to be put in this precarious situation where it could be criminally liable.
I don't understand how you can change a law and then backdate it. It's like saying, on a lesser level, imagine somebody brings in and says, jaywalking in the city centre is now a 1 year fine from this day. Like, this is when the legislation is brought in. So let's go back through all our CCTV footage for the last 10 years and see who jaywalked, and then we're going to put you in prison for a year.
Well, no.
You can't backdate a law.
Yeah, I know, but I disagree with that. And the reason why I disagree with that as an example is that they're not backdating the law. What they're saying is that we now are clarifying and we are classifying any embryo, any frozen embryo as a child life. And so it doesn't matter that it's backdated. They're not going to say, hey, well, because you last year destroyed your embryos, we're going to criminally charge you now. What they're saying is any that are now on ice need to be treated alongside these new legislations.
Yes, but you make a decision on the education at that time. They made a decision to freeze, not knowing there could be a possibility that they're going to be charged. They probably wouldn't have made that exact decision if there was more information at the time, which is my problem.
Yes, but that is the whole thing that people are facing now. That's why this is just such an incredibly overwhelming moral debate. But I guess the real problem here is because religion and politics have been conflated now within the states. And that's what happened when reproductive rights was given back to the states to make their independent decisions. And there was a really interesting, when this new ruling happened, the amendments, this is what was written. The people of Alabama have declared the public policy of this state to be that unborn human life is sacred. We believe that each human being from the moment of conception is made in the image of God, created by him to reflect his likeness. It is as if the people of Alabama took what was spoken of the prophet Jeremiah and applied it to every unborn person in this state. It is unbelievable to me that from a westernized country, I understand that there are many countries throughout the world where politics and religion are so intertwined. But for a country like America to have it so deeply intertwined that it affects women in this way, it is almost unfathomable how many steps backwards have been taken in this.
You said this earlier in the chat, Laura. You can go somewhere else to another state for IVF. Sure, of course you can go to another state for IVF, but the extra expense that takes to move to another state to do your treatment is huge, because you don't just duck over, go into the clinic, put your embryo in, high five and go home. It takes weeks of injections and blood tests and ultrasounds. So you would have to move to that place for whatever period of time you need, depending on your IVF needs. You would have to stay in that place, do all of your injections there, and it's so timed that you can't just keep going between states, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's every day for people, sometimes it's every 2 days, every 3 days, whatever.
Well, it's going to be a situation where only the most privileged and only the most
100%.
financially wealthy people are going to be able to access this type of IVF treatment. Because, I mean, it's not – what's happening now is that a lot of clinics within Alabama have paused and suspended their embryo freezing facilities because they don't want to be criminally liable. but you can still go in, have eggs taken and have like, you know, IVF done without doing the freezing portion of the embryos. You can have your eggs frozen. You can have embryos created instantly, but it just means that what is going to happen is that people are going to have to do more rounds of IVF. They're going to have to outlay that initial cost more times. And in the States, for an IVF treatment, it's even more than what it is in Australia. It's 15 to 20,000 to have one round of IVF.
It is more there, and they don't get any form of rebates or government help where there are forms of rebates in Australia.
Which I think the most devastating part of this whole thing is that families who can't conceive naturally are so penalised. It is the guilt, it is the shame, and it's the fact that we are making people's most desperate want, like the desperation to have children when you're unable to, that you're going through the IVF journey. We are punishing people for that already when they're already in such a place of hurt and such a place of wanting.
I actually relate to this so much. And I haven't spoken about this on the podcast yet, but now seems like a very, very perfect time. I did speak about this at one live show, at the Sydney live show, very briefly. But last year, you guys know, you've been on my fertility journey for a very long time. You know, this has been years now. I'm 36 years old. I'll be 37 in August. And I've been freezing my eggs a few times. And then I realized that I probably need to freeze embryos if I do want to have a child. And that is just not my own realization. This is from many discussions with my IVF doctor and just the research that's available for my fertility and my results. I don't have great fertility. I never got a huge number of eggs, and every time I went back, they got less and less and less. So I made the decision, I should say we made the decision, Ben and I, to freeze embryos last year, which was a pretty big decision, and I didn't take it lightly. And it might seem like to a lot of people that came really quickly in our relationship. But I think relationships develop at different times the older you get. And sometimes when there's an external pressure, like a biological clock and like the extra fertility stress, you do make decisions.
Why? And I know the reason to this, but I think for the context of people listening who have, because like everyone who is a lifer has followed along so much around the egg freezing conversations that we've had. But why didn't you want to share sooner that you had frozen embryos? Because that is such a big, monumental thing from like a relationship perspective, but also from a fertility conversation that you left out of the original talks that we had.
It's funny, because I do share everything on the podcast, and well, most things, and we've always said we don't share everything. But I always had this feeling, because Laura and I had these discussions, are you going to talk about this, that you're doing it?
Yeah.
And I said...
That's kind of what made the last round of egg freezing such a big deal.
And I said, no, I don't think I'm going to. I think... And I guess in a way I told a bit of a fib to you guys. Well, it wasn't a fib, but it was a bend of the truth. I said I was just doing another egg freezing round, which it is, right? It takes out the eggs. But I didn't tell you that I was making those eggs into an embryo because it felt highly personal, and it was very personal to Ben as well. And I didn't want to talk about it because I was worried about the result. And I didn't want to be going through, if it didn't work or something went wrong, I didn't want everyone to know that I was going through it and then have to talk about the fact that it didn't work. And this was just a preconceived idea, right? Like everybody that I know in my life that has done embryos, I didn't know many people that hadn't ever gotten them. I never assumed that I wouldn't get embryos, but I was just worried that something could go wrong. And then I had already laid all the information out there and you guys knew, and then I would have to talk about it whilst I was going through something. So I was like, let's just see what happens and then I'll talk about it after the fact. Like I just want to get through this as stress-free as possible, because the number one thing is you don't stress. That's what your fertility doctor says, which is so funny in hindsight, because you're like, this is very stressful.
Okay, this is a very personal question and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Do you, or have you thought about, and I'm relating it back to this conversation with Alabama, right? What if something happens where you and Ben don't work out in the way that you plan, you know, whatever that is, and you have embryos that are frozen? What do you do?
That's the other pressure. So Ben and I, we only made this decision because we, at this point in time, we know, and I feel even bad saying that, we want to marry each other. We want to be together. And I always say this point in time because I almost feel like I'm buffering it for myself in case
Just
it goes south in the future, because we all know relationships are a funny thing. But it is a pressure. You do think about it because it is, in a way, a child. It's not alive, but it is your DNA and his DNA, and you've made it and it's ready to become a child. So it's it's such a funny thing. And this is why I relate with this conversation so much. you go through so many conversations with the clinic and with each other about what that looks like, whether you can donate them, or if one of you dies, do you give permission for the other person to use it? Do you want nobody to use it? Do you want science to have it? Do you donate it to a friend? Like there are so many. And so you go through, and I won't tell you exactly. I did say that my sister could use them if my sister can use my eggs. And then I said, if I die, my sister can use my embryos with Ben's permission. So you fill out so many different scenarios, which sounds crazy, but makes sense. But when I went through it, so I did it twice last year. And when I went through it the first time, when I said I didn't want to talk about it in case something went wrong, I feel like that was the best decision for me because something did go wrong. And I had it in my head that I was definitely going to come out with an embryo, because why wouldn't you? You know, you've paid so much money and it's science. It's and I'm such a science woman. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing every single thing I can possibly do to get an embryo, so it's going to be fine. And I did get a few embryos. And what happens is they develop the embryo, and then over a 6-day period, it's pretty amazing. It's like CCTV footage. They put these little embryos in their little petri dish, and there's literally a camera that monitors them. These are microscopic, right? And you can log on at any time and see it developing. It's amazing. And it develops over 6 days. And over the 6 days, things can go wrong. Sometimes they don't develop. Sometimes they develop too slowly. But you need them to make it to the 6-day mark. When they get to the 6-day mark, if any get there, you can do genetic testing if you choose to. You don't have to. I decided to do the genetic testing so that when the time comes, I have the best chance of falling pregnant. I know that there's nothing wrong, that it might miscarry or whatever. I just wanted to say, I'll pay the extra just to check that I have the best possible chance. So I only got one that made it to the 6 days. Sorry, I got two. One to make it to the 6 days, and then one didn't survive properly the genetic testing. It was too unstable. And they told me that. They were like, it's not great, because they can tell. They grade them as well. They're like, these are good ones, these are medium ones, these are bad ones. So I had one embryo and I felt really good about it. I was like, Ben was like, babe, that's great. We only need one, which I know you don't because one embryo doesn't equate to one live birth.
Like a 45% chance of it taking.
But I didn't want to take that from him too. I was like, you're right. Like, it's fine. One's fine. Then they do the genetic testing, and then it's like, I think another 8 days or something later you get the results. But I thought, what are the odds of something being wrong with that? So I was telling everyone, I was like, we got an embryo. It's amazing. And then I remember I was over in Scotland, and I remember getting the call from the geneticist in my clinic. And they said, we're so sorry. Your embryo has a really, really rare abnormality. And I'm talking like, I think there were like 12 live births recorded of what this embryo had. And essentially it's non-viable. So even if it survived the pregnancy, it wouldn't survive life.
It's not compatible with life.
It's not compatible with life. So I didn't have to make a decision of what to do with that embryo, because here in Australia, you're not allowed to go any further. The clinic won't inject you with that embryo because they know it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
But that was devastating. Like, you go through so much, and I know there are so many women out there that are going to be listening to this. You go through so much, and you have all of science, and you've paid so much money, and your hormones have gone through everything, and you have so much hope that you're going to get what you want, and then you get nothing. And I was like, how did I just go through that? How did I just go through all of that alone too and get nothing? I was like,
yeah.
And then you just, like you said before, you feel so much shame. I don't feel shame, but I feel really guilty.
Yeah.
Because it's that cliche of like, you feel broken, and Ben wants a child, but he wants me more. But you're like, what's wrong with my body? Like, even with science, why can't I
make embryos?
Why? Yeah, like, it doesn't make sense. Anyway, there's another aspect of you, like, even just getting one and it having something so rare. I'm like, what are the actual odds of that? Like, so I just took a breather for a little while, and I decided to do it again because my fertility specialist was like, look, the odds of that happening, she's like, I will guarantee you basically that will not happen again. She's like, we can go again. It can't happen again. Because Ben and I as individuals were genetically tested, and this is what's so fascinating. Individually, you're genetically tested as the parents, and we were fine. So that's why they test the embryos again, because it's something in the formation. It's not coming from your DNA, it's the development.
Yeah, everything, so many things have to go right for it to go right,
Yes.
on a DNA level, but also just in terms of like how it progresses.
Yeah. So took a few months off because I just needed to get myself ready emotionally again. Did it again. And that was when you guys might have seen Ben flew over just for that week. We sort of had a joke about it, but he flew in for like 3 or 4 days. He literally flew in for my collection and he did a live donation. So last time we used frozen sperm, but this time we were like, okay, let's try fresh. So he flew in and he also just wanted to be there. If I got none again, he thought that I would be a mess, and I would have been. So it was really beautiful. So he flew in, did his sperm donation. We did the whole thing again, and long story short, we ended up with 5, which is great, and then 3 good ones.
So three that are viable.
So I now have, very happy to report, I have 3 genetically tested embryos frozen. Which was like, which was really exciting. And they're graded, which is also interesting because they're like,
unlawful harm to a child. Like it's unfathomable the pain that some of these families will go through and the lack of support that they have because of these changes in rulings.
well, that's what made me so emotionally charged about this. When I saw this come out last week, I was speaking to my sister Sherry about it. And I was like, you realise there's a high chance if I was in Alabama in that situation that I could go to prison. It could be wrongful death. First of all,
be sued a lot of money.
Or be sued. First of all, I would have embryos that I might not ever be able to use. Second of all, I had one that had to be terminated because it was non-viable, but they would see it in Alabama as viable. They would see that it has still been made alive, and they would have still said you need to give it the best chance of living, even though science says it won't.
Yeah.
I could not imagine what those women were going through. But then there's a part of me that also relates to those 3 families that lost their embryo. I understand in a way what they must be feeling, because I know how unlikely it is that I'll probably get any more.
So imagine if someone had smashed them.
Someone, after what I have just been through, and people are going through it a lot more than me. They're doing 10, 15, 20. Like there are people doing multiple unsuccessful embryo collections and IVF rounds. So I can't imagine how much worse it is for them. But if I only had those 3 and some dickhead for whatever reason just knocked them off and they smashed and I cannot imagine how upset and angry and furious you would be that a chance to have a family that so many people think about their whole life and hold on to has literally just been snatched from their hands.
Don't get me wrong. I understand why these 3 families brought this as a civil suit and then fought it hard. I understand why they did it. But what I don't agree with is how the state has taken such an emotionally charged case that is such a unique case that has never happened before and use that as the basis to change the legislation, which will affect everybody. And it affects people who now have embryos, who have gone through breakups, divorces, who can't use them, who have gone through deaths, who have gone through whatever the situation is. Imagine if you are married and your wife dies and you have embryos on ice. What do you do with them? Now you've got the financial implications of having to manage the fact that you're widowed, but also manage the financial implications that you have embryos on ice that you can never use, or you have to donate them to someone to use. And then that's another conversation around whether you morally, personally can do it. I don't know. I just think for someone who fucking loved The Handmaid's Tale, I see some of this stuff playing out in the States and I'm like, that is exactly where this is headed. And I know that this conversation will be very emotionally charged for a lot of people, whether it's because you have been through the IVF journey yourself, or maybe it is because you are somebody who is deeply religious and you hold these views. And I understand that you feel the way that you feel. And I know that we will receive messages from people who may be angry that we don't agree with it. But ultimately, this affects so many more people beyond your personal beliefs. And I guess one of the reasons why I get so angry about this, and I think we all should be angry about this, is that when you really boil it down, the whole purpose behind this is to try and preserve and protect children. Ultimately, that's what they're trying to say. But I just think that that is so dressed up, like it's such a farce when the biggest killer of children in the United States is gun violence and nobody is doing anything. Well, I mean, in terms of when it comes to the political powers that be, nobody is doing anything because it's a constitutional right to bear arms. And so ultimately, if you care so much about kids, do something about gun law.
100%. And the last thing I want to say is, to be clear, I didn't agree that this should be a cause for wrongful death. I don't agree that this legislation should be in place. But what I do say I understand is the feeling that those families must have. The feeling that maybe their one chance of a family has been taken away from them. But this is very evidently something that needs to be, I mean, it's such a particular case that we haven't seen before. It is a situation that will have to be taken day by day, case by case. And
not as the benchmark.
Well, not as a benchmark. And what I mean by that is we don't know the exact surroundings of what this patient did when they came in and these embryos were destroyed. If this patient planned and maliciously broke in to open the freezer with the sole intention of destroying these embryos, then 100% that person should be held accountable. But if there has been some sort of a mistake or somebody has decided they no longer want to use the embryo, how are those two things related? How are those two things connected?
But now they are.
Exactly. This is why it should be a case-by-case situation.
I mean, at the end of the day, the reason why this has made such incredible headline news is because there has been it's already had a significant impact on IVF clinics across the state. So many IVF clinics have paused their freezing of embryos, and I guess it really does just open up to like what is next in terms of whether the other states are going to roll this out, and where does that leave women? And what does that mean for women who are desperate to have a baby and families who are desperate to have a baby?
Well, it's time for Accidentally Unfiltered, your most embarrassing story, our
favorite
segment. I have one today that relates very much to you, Laura.
Perfect. Has it got something to do with feet?
I actually think you wrote it in. It sounds like you wrote it in.
I feel like I'm going to be offended now. Now that you've said that, I will be offended.
I recently had some delightful hemorrhoids. Mum life. And when getting ready for work...
Offended.
Scene. And when getting ready for work one day, I took a close-up photo of my anus so I could look at them properly.
Oh, dear.
I then went about my day and was at a lovely work lunch catching up with an old colleague who asked to see a photo of my daughter because it had been a while. Happily, I opened my camera roll when she sat next to me, staring at my screen, right in all its glory, at a close-up photo of my hemorrhoids on my asshole.
Fuck.
I quickly scrolled past it. I know she saw my asshole. She didn't say anything, but you know that moment where you're like, we all know that we just saw what's on the screen, but you know how you're like, let's just pretend that didn't happen.
No, I think in that moment you admit it.
What?
You
Sorry,
explain yourself.
Is that a hemorrhoid?
No.
Is that what you're going to say?
No, you don't. I mean, the person who sees it doesn't. The person who goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm just taking photos of my hemorrhoids.
Scroll on.
No?
No. Scroll on. You don't need to sit in that.
That was my donut. Sorry about that.
You don't need to sit in that.
That's just, oh.
I don't know what you say, but I don't think you do an explanation of the artwork that you just showed her.
Do you know why? Because I feel like now that I've unleashed my
labia?
now that I've unleashed the conversation about my labia, I feel like these are the types of accidental filters we're going to get. They all live within the same world.
Yeah, because people feel seen. Now that they know that you've shopped your labia around your employees, people are going to feel okay with telling us what they've done.
It's okay to upload your hemorrhoids to the iCloud. Just go for it. Live your best life. Okay, all right. I have one more. Today was my birthday. So while I was at the local shopping centre having a coffee with my sister, I decided to treat myself to a cheeky little massage. Unfortunately for me and my masseuse, this was a spur of the moment decision. And that morning I had put on my oldest, rattiest G-string with very minimal support, if you know what I mean. Well,
I'm wearing one right now. I know.
As we are about halfway through the massage, the masseuse moves down and massages my legs. And as she goes to pop my knee out to the side, well, something else popped out too. It was my right labia. The next 20 minutes were the most awkward of my entire life, as I'm sure that she saw more than she bargained for.
Okay,
dear.
I have a question.
It's fine.
No, but this is my question, and I really mean it. Why do all our boundaries and sensibilities go out the window when you get in a massage? And what I mean by that is,
I mean, she didn't do it on purpose.
no, but what I mean by that is if you went to the beach, no, listen, because I do it. I do this. When you go to the beach or something, if you crossed your legs and your labia came out, you're going to put it back in. When you get a massage, there's this feeling that happens where you feel like you can't like correct yourself. So like, you know, when you get in a massage and
I'm going to stop you. If my labia is laying out on the table, I'm going to pop it back in.
No, listen, you know when you get a massage, I'm laying on my back now for those that can't see. You know how then they'll put your leg into like a frog position and sometimes like they'll do your thigh? If your flap pops out for some reason, like you know it's a little bit there, right? Like you know it's a little bit
But you
out.
don't want to draw attention and touch
But you don't. You're just like, well, nothing I can do. No, there is. But you choose not to. You choose just to let it. Why do we do that instead of just being like, oh, sorry, I'll just put that back in? Like, why do we just sit there and feel like we can't?
Because you don't want to draw attention to it. That's
It's
what
there.
it is.
The flap's out. Like the attention's drawn to it.
But it's the same thing as like you just showed a photo of your hemorrhoids to a person and you didn't want to draw attention to it. So you scrolled on past and pretended like nothing It's the pretending like nothing happened.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with anything except for the fact that
This
it's
has
to
nothing to do with anything.
except for the fact to do with it, that it's about a massage. Matt went and had a massage it was on Saturday. I took the kids to the movies and he went and had a massage. Must be nice. And
How did that happen?
He came back and he was like, hey, can you just look at my back? And he showed me his back and he had like 3 massive scratches, but in weird directions where there's nothing worse than when you get a massage and the person has like long nails. He was like, it was the worst thing I've ever experienced. And the woman found my shoulder blade and kept rubbing my shoulder blade because she thought it was a knot. She'd gotten.
But it was the bone.
It was a bone. It was a bone. Anyway, that's why I hate massages, because you never know what you're going to get. Anyway, let's talk about suck and sweet before we get our asses out of here. My suck for this week is that Matt this morning hasn't happened yet. Well, it kind of has happened, but the effects of it hasn't happened yet. Matt has gone to Vegas.
Oh, really must be nice. He gets a massage and then he goes to Vegas.
Saturday, I need a massage because I'm heading to Vegas. He's gone to Vegas for 10 days. He's working with KO, which is a sporting channel, and he's over there for the footy. So must be real nice.
How do you guys do this division?
And you know what I found out? I found this out on Sunday, just by accident. He mentioned it in front of me. So he's been employed to go over there as part of Two Doting Dads, right? So the podcast, Two Doting Dads, 2 dads who are doting on their children. You know, that's the whole premise of it, right? So KO said, come to Vegas. You can bring your kids. And he said, nah, they don't want to come to Vegas.
Yes, they do,
Yeah, Matt.
They want to go to Vegas. Have you seen Marley on a blackjack table? That girl knows what's up. Make me some money, Marley.
The kids want to go to Vegas. Mama wants the kids to go to Vegas. Anyway, no, I actually don't want them to go to Vegas. But
Yes,
it was an option.
Vegas is where dreams are made.
The kids could have gone to Vegas. Mummy could have been on her own for 10 days.
Oh, he conveniently left that little piece of information
Yeah,
out.
but he comes back. He goes to Vegas for 10 days, comes back for 5, and then he is taking the kids away on holidays. He's taking them away on a P&O cruise with his mum.
And you don't get that either.
And I don't get to go on that one. I was like, got to work.
You draw the short straw.
It's fucked.
Big time.
So that's my suck. And my sweet for the week is that the weekend, once again, it was fucking great. Taylor Swift on Friday night was a real high, leaning into the cringe, embracing all the things that are dorky and lame, and normally people would laugh at you because you're like, oh, I'm going to put my red lipstick on, my cowboy boots and glitter in my hair.
It was good.
And I'm a 37-year-old mum and I don't care. It was so dorky and fantastic that I loved every second of it.
My suck is, so I stayed at a hotel over the weekend, as I mentioned, with my friend Shannon, but I get my HelloFresh delivered on a Sunday. That's when it comes. And that's my food for the entire week. And I had just bought all of Delilah's food. Like she has really fresh meats and stuff like that.
Salmon.
Yeah. Producer Keeshia had Delilah because I was at the hotel. So I went back to my house to get the HelloFresh from the hotel and put it in my fridge because I was like, I can't leave HelloFresh on the street for 2 days. It'll be gone or it'll be off if someone doesn't take it. So I went home from the hotel, got the HelloFresh, put it in the fridge, and then went back to the hotel. And then Keeshia dropped Delilah home this morning and she said, actually it was the funniest message. Hey, Britt, did you mean to leave your fridge open and off? no, Keeshia, I did not mean to leave my fridge door open and the power off as a full fridge. And I'm like, no, Keeshia, I didn't mean that. Why?
She's just
She goes,
checking.
She goes, oh, well, it's open and off. And anyway, my entire fridge and freezer is off. And I'm talking, I've never had a fridge so full of food. How full is it, producer Keeshia? It's so full. Everything is off.
That's really sad.
It's the biggest suck. And my
Yeah.
sweet Taylor Swift.
You really need to wash the glitter off your face.
Is this? Oh, I think that's highlighter. I might have gone too heavy.
Anyway, guys, that is it from us. We hope you loved the episode. If you did, you can always jump on and follow us wherever you listen to your podcast, because it means that every episode will fall into your feed. And you can follow us on Instagram, Laugh Uncut Podcast, or on TikTok. And then we also have the discussion group where you can join in the conversations. And that's it from us, guys. You know the drill.
Tell your mum, tell your dad, tell your dog, tell your friends, and share the love because
We love love!